Another day, another story. CBSE Class 8 English Honeydew, the best Christmas present in the world summary. The best Christmas present in the world is written by Michael Morpurgo. The story starts with the author making a decision about buying an old roll-top desk. He spotted one in a junk shop in Bridport. It was in bad condition but was reasonable. So, he thought that he could restore it and brought it home. He started working on it on the eve of Christmas. He pulled out the drawers and found them in a damaged condition. The last drawer stuck fast and the author had to apply more force to open it. Finally, the drawer opened and he found a shallow space inside. Inside the drawer, there was another small drawer. On it there was a piece of lined note paper and it was written, "Jim's last letter, received January 25, 1915. To be buried with me when the time comes." Inside the box, he found an envelope and the address mentioned on it was, Mrs. Jim McPherson, 12 Copper Beeches, Bridport, Dorset. He took out the letter and unfolded it. It was written in pencil with a date at the top, December 26, 1914. He found an envelope in that secret drawer. The author read the letter. The letter had been written by a German captain whose name was Jim McPherson. He had written the letter to his wife, Connie. Jim McPherson had narrated a wonderful experience in this letter that had happened on the battlefield of Christmas Eve. The British and Germans were at war. Both the armies were standing in their trenches on Christmas morning. Someone from the German side was waving off the white flag. Then, they were calling out to the British soldiers. They were wishing Happy Christmas to the British soldiers who wished them back in return. Surprisingly, some German soldiers started moving towards them. The captain was alarmed as he thought that they might attack them. But, it turned out that they brought German wine and canned meat along with them. They were hugging one another and celebrating Christmas Eve. There were no guns between them. In the middle of the war, they were trying to make peace. A German officer moved towards McPherson. He shook hands and introduced himself as Hans Wolf Dusseldorf. He said that he loved to play the cello in the orchestra and greeted McPherson for Christmas. In return, McPherson also introduced himself as a school teacher of Dorset. Hans Wolf smiled and said he knew about Dorset. Although he had never visited Dorset, or been to England either, he knew about England from school as he had read books in English. His favorite writer was Thomas Hardy and his favorite book was Far from the Madding Crowd. Dusseldorf and McPherson also shared a Christmas cake together. Hans Wolf told Jim that the marzipan was the best he had ever tasted. McPherson mentioned in his letter that this was a wonderful Christmas party that they had ever seen. Suddenly, another soldier brought out the football on the ground. The British and German soldiers played a friendly match. McPherson and Dusseldorf clapped and cheered the soldiers. Jim McPherson wished if the problem between the two nations could be resolved by a football match instead of war. He said so because in a football match, no one dies. Neither do children get orphaned, nor do the soldiers' wives become widows. Finally, the football match came to an end. The Germans won the match. Soon after, everyone had drinks and enjoyed the food. McPherson wished Dusseldorf and told him that they would meet again with their families. He left with a gentle note that when the fight ends, they all could go home and enjoy quality time with their respective families. Dusseldorf saluted McPherson and walked away slowly and unwillingly. That night the German soldiers were heard singing a Christmas carol. The English soldiers also gave them a rousing chorus of While Shepherds Watched. While concluding the letter, McPherson wrote to Connie that all those moments were the happiest memories of his life. He ended the letter with the hope that war would end soon. Both the armies longed for peace and he would return to Dorset soon and they would be able to spend time together again. After reading the letter, the author put back the letter into the envelope. He decided to give the letter to whom it belonged. The next morning, he woke up early and went to Bridport. He reached house number 12 and found the house in a burnt-out shell condition. He knocked on the door of the next house to inquire about the whereabouts of Mrs. McPherson. An old man staying in the neighborhood said that her house caught fire probably due to burning of candles. However, she was saved by the firemen and was admitted to a nursing home in Burlington House on the Dorchester Road that was on the other side of town. Later, The author went there and found Mrs. McPherson was an old lady who was confined to a wheelchair at the Burlington House nursing home. The matron offered him a mince pie to eat. He introduced himself to Mrs. McPherson as her husband's friend who had come to visit her in Christmas. He wished her and handed over the tin box containing her husband's last letter to her. That moment her eyes lit up with recognition and her face was filled with a sudden glow of happiness. The author explained that he had come to visit her as he brought a Christmas present for her and explained about the roll-top desk. Mrs. McPherson's eyes were filled with tears and she was completely lost in thoughts. She assumed that the author was her husband and asked him to sit beside her. She expressed that she missed him badly all the years when he was away to fight the war. Besides, she also said that she prepared a nice Christmas cake, marzipan all around for him because she knew how much he relished it. Thus, the story ends with a note that Mrs. McPherson mistook the author for her long-awaited husband for whom she had been waiting for many years. Conclusion of The Best Christmas Present in the World. The chapter, The Best Christmas Present in the World, conveys to students a moral lesson that war only brings sadness and pain to mankind. Soldiers who fight a war and get killed in it lose their family lives in the process. Therefore, countries should follow the path of peace to attain happiness and harmony among people in the world. Here, we brought you the CBSE Class 8 English Honeydew Prose Summary of the Best Christmas Present in the World that must have helped 8th Standard students to have a thorough understanding of the chapter.